Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out called Sister Armor: Healing in Community. And before I introduce them to you today, I want to say a humongous thank you to Tiffany Borner, who is the lead author of this beautiful project. Tiffany, we would not be here without you. You are amazing. You have brought together a stellar group of humans and authors who are just taking their hearts out and putting them out for everyone to read. And ooh, that makes all of our authors nervous a little bit, but that is what they're doing. They've offered such beautiful, vulnerable stories, yours as well, Tiffany. So thank you. I'm honored to be guiding this project. So ladies, welcome. How are you doing today?
Greetings.
Hi.
Doing well, excited.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you both here. So I have Sakai with me. She was called by her ancestors to serve as a bridge of love, helping you restore awareness of the divinity within you and guiding you into alignment with your assigned purpose. I also have Mary Blanchard here. She's a doTERRA wellness advocate and uses the purity of essential oils to support and uplift you. And later after the show, you guys are going to be able to drop down into the show notes and find their information and get with them about all the awesomeness that they are doing in the world. But for now, Sakai, you're going to start this party off today. Tell us about the beautiful chapter that you wrote for this book.
Great. Well, greetings. Good morning to you, Laura. Thank you, Tiffany, as well, and to Ellen for just introducing me to this beautiful project that I am so honored to be a part of. My chapter is chapter 8, and it is a journey of remembering, awakening to my ancestral calling. When Ellen called me about this project, I found myself like, what in the world would I share? Because I was doing shamanic Reiki for a little bit until I started my initiation process. And then that had then been put on hold. And I've just been engulfed in this process of healing and cleansing spiritually for myself. So I was like, well, what in the world would I even talk about in this chapter? And I had to stay where I am presently and say, okay, well, this was a journey in and of itself. It was a journey of remembering who I am, of unlearning experiences and programmings and thoughts and all of those things, and bringing myself back to myself. And that's where I started this chapter, a journey of remembering even just my love of nature, and then learning why that was, my connection with water and just with the trees, and all of it being ancestral, because it's really a return, not anything really new, but a return to my true self. And so that's where I began this chapter. I began it like, what was the key moment to unraveling my world and bringing me to this place where I am now? And so that is my chapter, a journey of remembering and then awakening to my ancestral call.
Ooh, and our listeners are like, oh, that was a tease. Oh my goodness. You are going to have to read this book for those beautiful stories. I cannot wait for people to read. All right. So I love the idea of remembering so much. This whole thing is an awareness process. And when you remember who you are, literally for me, my version is a moment of connecting with joy again.
Yes.
So what else do you want to say about that?
Yes, like I will definitely come back to that. I began to just remember myself as a child, right? I remember those playful moments, those I call it like coloring outside of the lines. Like I remember as a child coloring outside of just scribbling. And then as you get older, like, well, try to stay inside the lines, the pretty cat is there, draw, color inside the lines. And then I remember having vivid dreams of myself flying that were then just stopped once I, became a teenager. And so a lot of the remembering brought me back to my childhood, back to those moments of joy, where nothing mattered, where I could play with anyone on the playground and it didn't matter, where I could get dirty, I could dress up, I could be who I wanted to be, I could do whatever I wanted to do, and everything was well. And it took me back to those places. And a song came forward in this process that reminded me, joy comes from the love inside. Love comes from the joy inside. And that's just what it's all been about, reclaiming, remembering and reclaiming that joy.
Oh my gosh,
Beautiful journey.
you're giving me a coloring book flashback. Thanks for that. Like, oh my God, seriously, that was a moment, a little tiny aha for me just now, because perfectionism starts somewhere, doesn't it?
Yes.
And like the coloring book, I'm like,
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a niece, I have a 6-year-old niece, and when she colors, I mean, it's beautiful. And the orange, the color of my face is orange, and it's all over the line that she drew for my head, and it's beautiful. It's not within the line. And so I found myself as I was older living life inside these lines, inside these boxes. And now it's like, okay, I'm going to color outside the lines again. I'm going to do something different than what I had been doing all of these years and return to outside the lines. What's outside the lines for me? What's outside of what I created as my norm? What's outside the lines that I created? And so that is what this journey has been about, coloring outside of the lines and just seeing just how beautiful it is to break to break those lines.
I love that. You guys might once in a while see me like looking down and scribbling. That's what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm writing that one down. Sakai, thank you so much. And thank you. And Mary, thank you too. And all of our authors for just the badasses that you are, for saying yes to this project, but also for being willing to put your hearts out there for people to feel and see and understand. And this is such a beautiful book filled with such beautiful, big, wonderful energy. And I thank you both for, stepping up and being here with us. So Mary, are you ready to share about your chapter?
Yeah, I am. I connect with so much that Sakai says. And, I always felt like I was put in a box, but never fit in that box at all. So I really connect with that feeling of, wanting to scribble outside those lines. And I too connect with the, coloring book as a child, because that was always something that I did, but was trying to, live in that perfect little life of, drawing within those lines. And I would outline the whatever the picture was, so I would make sure to stay in the lines. And so kind of similarly, when I was approached about writing this chapter, I kind of thought, I've been on a healing journey for like 30 years. Like, how do I, where do I start? And so it was such a gift to be given this opportunity, because I'm a person that I always show up for other people. And in writing this, I realized that I had a pattern of not showing up for myself. And I didn't realize that I have actually had a process that I've come through. So in my story, I kind of take you through that process of, the layers of uncovering myself and, to use Sakai's word, unraveling, of how I unraveled, and that there are also layers into your healing. Also, there's not just a snap and, you have a thought and you're healed. Let me back up for a second. I actually follow Sakai's chapter. So I'm chapter 9 in Sister Armor, called Living an Essential Life, Stepping into Your Natural Self. So for me, it really was a process of stepping into my natural self, reconnecting to myself, and going through kind of, like those layers of an onion, of peeling everything back and stripping it down to the basics, and then walking through of how I build myself up again. and taking it to my essential oils and how powerful they are, with that purity of taking me outside of myself and let me connect to everything that's around me. So thank you so much. It's been such a blessing to be a part of this.
You are welcome. I'm so honored to have you in the project. So you're making me think of, I'm going back to what you said about the layers, because this is a topic in my healing world, in our therapeutic healing world, especially in our myofascial release groups and the healers that I run with who do hands-on healing. We talk about the idea of layers a lot. And I think it's just kind of funny sometimes, you know, even people who have dedicated their life to understanding healing can be like me in their 50s and have a moment where, oh, haven't I gotten to that layer yet? I guess not.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is a journey, not the destination. But is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, definitely. A journey is right, because if you can't appreciate those steps along the way that you're taking, most likely you're not going to get to that process and get through it. And so for me, everything really is about the journey, because if you're not enjoying this along the way, and being able to sit in that uncomfortableness, being willing to open yourself up to that, it's just takes so much longer, because with all of those layers you're uncovering, you're getting to different things. And so things can come back up that you think you've dealt with, but maybe there is a different layer to it that you haven't peeled back yet. And now it's a different time. So something that you heard prior might not have had that connection for you, might not have had that meaning to you. And now you're in a different space. Even a day later, an hour later, you have changed. So you're looking at everything with a different eye. So you can pick up on those different subtleties and make different connections. So
I love that reminder that even like an hour from now, you're a different person, because you've experienced 1 hour's worth of life in there, right?
Right.
And so you could hear something for the 100th time in that moment and go, oh, I get it.
Yeah, now it means something different to me.
Yeah, that's
Right.
awesome. That's super
The new
awesome.
awareness, you know,
Right.
the
Exactly.
new awareness of it. And so the
Yes.
healing will never end as long as we're breathing, right? The
Right.
healing will never end, but there is a new level of awareness, so that maybe for myself, the time that I took to align is shorter.
That's
So
exactly it for me, is the time gets shorter and you spend less of your moments suffering and way more of your
yes,
moments in
Right.
joy.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, for me, after I wrote this chapter and had it submitted, and we're moving on and the editing process is done, I felt really odd and I couldn't pinpoint what I was feeling. I kept trying to sit with this and like, I don't really know what's coming up. So I actually have some emotional cards that I went to the deck and I pulled out 2 cards. And the first one I pulled out was insecurity. And I thought, yeah, like all of that's coming up. But the second card I pulled out was awareness. And I was like, okay, this is exactly, what I'm feeling, even though like I've been able to write out what my process is and, really map out how I go through my healing. It still brought up different things. And I love that I can keep going back to that and keep going back to those emotions and delve into them more.
So for those of you who are interested in book writing in general and all of those things, what's funny is the biggest excuse that I hear about not wanting to write their book or can't write it or just haven't been able to get around to it is like, well, what if I change my mind next month? Then all that stuff I wrote and published. I'm like, well, that's for book number 2 then.
Right.
That's for your next volume. That's like, because it's true. Like we move through stages of things, right? So I try to bust through people's writing excuses.
Yeah.
Mary, I want to move on to this next question. I'm going to start with you for this one. What does sister armor mean to you?
Oh, I loved that title. Right away, I connected with it because there's so much of, for me, I went through a process starting out of never feeling like I was good enough. And so I always have protected myself. Being vulnerable was not in my vocabulary. It was not something that I would do. I protected myself at all costs so that I wouldn't get hurt. So having that armor has always been really helpful. But then I've had the best of friendships too that helped me along the way. And I would never be who I am without my friends. They, it's going to make me emotional just even thinking about them. There's been so much support and outpouring of love, and it's just been amazing. But that whole concept of sister armor and healing in community, you don't do it alone. It's such an amazing process when you have support. And a lot of times, especially with me, I didn't want to be vulnerable. And so something like when I was presented with this idea of writing the chapter, my first thoughts that came up were, I couldn't do that. I'm not good enough. I don't have a bio. And as soon as I started hearing that negativity, I was like, oh, I need to step into this. I need to keep stepping forward, because I found every time I step forward, there's always somebody there to meet me. And so I just love that journey of community.
Yes, this is what I love so much about you all, because you just turn me on every day. You're walking the walk. You're noticing the voices and messages, and you're not letting them stop you. So thank you both for being, just amazing humans who are really practicing, because it's, we all know it's a practice.
Definitely a practice.
Sakai, how about you? What does sister armor mean to you?
Well, in the most recent years, I'll say going back maybe 5, 6, 7 years, being in a community of people who are on a spiritual journey was new for me. A place where I could, in all of my quote unquote weirdness, and all of my uniqueness, be in a place where I felt safe, right? Allowing myself to really fully be there was a challenge initially, because I was feeling like, oh wait, I'm not like them. They all have something great going on that they can pinpoint. I don't know. But once I was able to allow myself to actually be there and participate in the community, it was a door to freedom, because then I could allow myself to accept myself as I was, as other people were allowing me to just be. And so it really helped to heal. It really helped to bring in that, to help me to foster the love that I needed to give to myself in order to allow my inner self to come forward. So I'm grateful for those communities that I ended up in the circle with, because they really helped propel me to this place.
So important. And I'm in the fellow weird person group. I just call myself an alien, and it's all good. But it's pretty funny that you realize there's a whole lot of other aliens out there when you start to come together.
A whole lot of us.
Yeah.
I love what you just said, that community was a door to freedom. I agree with you. And no success happens without it. Community to me has meant the difference between success and failure, truly. Is there anything else either of you want to say about that?
I just wanted to say, oh, sorry about that, Sakai.
No, go ahead.
That being able to step into this community has really shown me how much love is out there. And for somebody who doesn't want to be vulnerable and doesn't want to, show up for themselves, if you just take one little step, the beauty that holds you is just amazing. And you really deserve to give yourself that opportunity, because there's so many people that want to support you and uplift you and cheer for you. So, if you're not doing that for yourself, there is a community always that will do that with you.
Agreed. Sakai, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was thinking about something Mary said earlier, and um, creating spaces for others to heal was great, but I needed that for myself as well. And being able to do that allows for me to accept fully who I am. Like I've for a moment I felt like I needed to look a certain way, sound a certain way, show up a certain way because everyone else was doing it this way. This is what's, trending now. But doing it in community allowed me to be the individual that I am, to be able to fulfill the purpose that I was given. Only me,
Yeah.
only I can do that.
Yes.
And it does not need to look like anyone. Sure, there will be similarities, but we are all here to do our individual parts. And being in community, I feel allows each individual person to contribute to the whole.
Yes, I love it. I love listening to both of you talk about this. This is such an important topic, and we have been through some things in the last couple of years that have created a bigger need, I think. And so as we wake up to, I say it a lot, as we wake up to what's possible in community, like the whole world opens up. That's why I loved what you said about it equaling freedom for you. So Sakai, I'm going to start with you for this next one. And this has to do with everything that we've been talking about so far. But for me, feeling is healing, and feeling is an awareness practice. So helping people to feel is part of this for me. In all of our book projects, that's, I think, how we are. And it's part of the remembering you talked about, we're remembering how to feel again. So what I want to know is, what's your personal practice of awareness look like in your day-to-day?
Ooh, all the feels.
Well, and you might have, like we all do, a toolkit of 100 things. So give me an idea of one of them today.
Actually, I say just step into the feeling, no matter what the feeling is. I think sometimes we don't want to feel, especially if it's hurt or pain or anger or frustration or whatever it can be. Some days I'm just maybe pissed off to the highest passivity, right? Who really wants to feel that?
Right.
But once I allow myself to step into it in the moment, okay, then I can realize, oh, this really isn't me. I can separate myself from this. It's okay. I don't need to be pissed off about this. I don't need to be angry about this. But it is a practice. It's something that has to be practiced daily, moment by moment. And so I step into it. I actually step into it now instead of turning and running away and pretending like, oh no, it's not there. I'm just gonna be happy. I'm just gonna be happy. No, I'm gonna step into it. Right now, I'm not happy. And then I allow myself to separate from it and say, okay, I see you. Thanks for being here.
Nice. I love that. What's something else, excuse me, you do for self-care?
Silence. Really, just silence, whether it's just not even speaking, nothing, just silence, just allowing me to be with my body, be with my breath, to remind myself that I'm here right now because in those moments, I can get caught up and swept away in that feeling. And so the self-care is pausing, being still, being quiet, not necessarily meditation, but
I was going to
those
ask you
things.
about that, the M word.
Right. It doesn't necessarily need to look like that. It could just be, I'm just going to sit here for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Nice.
say anything. I'm just going to just breathe. Okay. So silence and stillness, but not necessarily meditation.
I am with you on that too. So, Mary, what about you? Just thinking about feeling it as a healing practice, what's your practice of awareness look like in your day to day?
Yeah, coming from somebody who used to avoid feelings at all cost, it's a huge shift for me. But kind of like what Sakai said, for me, it is leaning into it. And if I lean into it, I can appreciate it for what it is, because I can at first kind of go, is this something I need to protect myself? What am I feeling? How? And then if I've leaned into it and made that little assessment of what is this, it always helps me to go to my essential oils and just kind of intuitively pick one and see what is speaking to me. And so I'll open up a bottle of one of my essential oils and just inhale it and allow it to bring up the feelings that I'm going through. A lot of times people don't want to lean into their feelings because they're afraid they'll get stuck in them. That's why I avoided everything. I was afraid, if I started to cry, I was going to get stuck in that crying. And now I kind of realize that all of those feelings need to be honored. If I'm feeling angry, if I'm feeling, happy, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling anxious, they're there for a reason. I appreciate now the anxiety I have, because it will heighten my awareness of, I want to make sure I'm prepared, because maybe I'm not really organized. And that little bit of anxiety is that cue to me of, oh, pay attention. There's something coming up and you want to be ready for it. So I really appreciate everything that I've gone through, because it brought me to this moment. I wouldn't have the awarenesses that I have now without going through those traumas and feelings. And so for me, it is that just continue to step into them and sit with them and embrace them and say thank you. And then know that I can move on. I have a lot of things that I went through in my childhood that really taught me to protect myself and disassociate myself. And so a lot of times people, when they've gone through different traumas, they want to ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist. And I realized that I have to say thank you to it, because it's taught me different skills now that I really appreciate, that I can share with other people. And so really leaning into those feelings is super important.
I love how both of you are talking about not avoiding those feelings. And me, as a lifelong healer and in the healing world, the very first thing is you honor the feelings first. You don't skip over the good stuff. And then when you realize that, because that can look like the wall of fire. This is how we used to talk about it in our classes. You're staring at the wall of fire. And so you just stand there and you don't want to go there, right? But when you jump through, face it, jump through, you look back and you realize, oh, that was like a millimeter thick. I would, if I had jumped sooner, I would have been over this by now. As we procrastinate because it looks like a wall of fire, Yeah. It's a process. And that's why it's nice to have people helping in that process, like you both. And I'll just remind our readers today, I'm talking about books all day long. Well, they are going to be our readers soon,
Yes,
but our
definitely.
listeners, drop down into the show notes later, because I have Mary and Sakai's websites and links for you. You can check out all of the amazing things they are up to. And really, they're very generously there for you for questions, for support, and, you know, everything that's going on in terms of what we talked about today. You, listener, you have a community. You just maybe don't know it yet. Right. And it is just one quick reach out away. Okay. Mary, what are some last words you'd like to share with our listeners about this whole healing journey?
I just want to let people know that exactly as you are, that you are enough, and you as you are is what the world needs. Your story, you stepping into your life, you claiming your spot. And there are so many ways to get there. Just take that first step in stepping into yourself, and you will find that there is so much support that just keeps showing up for you. But it requires your movement. It requires you to step forward. And you'll find just intuitively all the different healings that you need.
Nice. Perfect, Mary. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sakai, how about you?
I will offer to not be afraid, try something new. On the other side of something new could possibly be the healing that you needed. Sometimes we just keep going on this loop. Well, I'm going to keep trying this. I'm going to keep trying the same thing over, and nothing's changing. And so I offer, try something new. Reach out to someone that has a different voice than what you've been used to hearing. That may look differently than what you're used to seeing. And just allow your heart to surrender and receive whatever is being brought to you. That coloring outside the lines, that doing something different to get a new result, right? And so whatever your soul is yearning for, follow that direction, even if it's something that you're unfamiliar with. Your soul knows what it needs, and so follow that.
Love it. Sakai, Mary, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, listeners, remember to join us for the live stream book launch party on June 20th at 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to be gathering with all of our Sister Armor authors, and we'll be doing some giveaways that day. You're going to find that on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I've got you hooked up down below with that too. And if you happen to be listening to this interview after that date, well, hop over onto Amazon, because that means the book is ready for you and you can grab your copy. And maybe you're a wellness practitioner who's ready to share your brave words in one of our upcoming best-selling book collaborations. Please find us at bravehealer.com. And lastly, everybody, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Bye, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.